Hi everybody, it's Julie here. Let's talk granny squares. Well, right from the off, I bet you're puzzled by weights, measurements, what size ball of yarn, what size granny square, etc. Too often, these are left off guides and they cause people to give up. So here's these important bits straight away. Here is a ball of yarn that came on the front of a crochet magazine I bought in the supermarket. It weighs 21 grams. Let's see what size granny square we can get for that little ball of yarn, shall we? Here's the stitches that you will need so you can refer back to them at any time. A chain stitch is the foundation of all crochet, and it's simply yarn over the hook, pull through the loop just like this. I say simply, it's not simply when you first start, but you'll see that there's not much to it. Yarn over hook, pull through, yarn over hook, pull through. It becomes quite rhythmic to make. The main stitch and the main body of the work is going to be a treble crochet. It's the only stitch you're going to need to know to make granny squares. And it's done like this. And I hope this video part is slow enough for you to watch easily, but do let me know in the comments. You might wonder why I picked a granny square to begin with. Well, it keeps its shape, it's easy to control and monitor, and you can look back and check every stitch if you need to, and any mistakes are easily found, and you get a really useful fabric at your first attempt. So, what is a granny square? Well, it's an attractive crocheted square which can be any size you want, any colours that you want, and is useful in its own right or as one piece in a granny blanket. And who doesn't love those, eh? What you'll need a hook, and you try to match the hook size to how thick your yarn is, but you can adjust your size hook as many times as you need until you get the look and tightness of stitches that you have pictured in your mind. Crochet is quick, so you'll probably know within the first 5 minutes if it's the right match for you. Every person crochets at a different tightness. It's a natural thing, and you really need to practice and discover yours. So, let's jump right into this. Step 1, you chain. You need a loop of yarn tied up to put on your hook to start your work. A slip stitch is of course ideal, but to be honest, to get you started on your first piece, if you can get a tied loop that fits on the hook, just use whatever you can make. You can practice slip knots when you've got the time. So here you are with your tied loop of yarn around your hook. What next? Bring the yarn around the hook towards you and trying to keep it loose but not too loose. Pull that yarn through your tied loop. That's it. That's a chain. Simple as that. The more you practice these, the better, of course, but for now that will do just fine. Do this same process until you have 6 chains. Then just put your hook through the first loop that you made, wrap the yarn over and pull it through just like a chain to form a ring of 6 chains. Step 2, your first proper row. Make 3 chains just like before, as these form the first stitch. For the next and all other stitches in this row, use treble crochet, which is known as double crochet to any of you watching in the United States, and I'm guessing maybe Canada too. Either way, it's the same stitch but just a different name. So your chain is your first treble crochet. Make 2 more treble crochets into the center hole. Yes, that's right, in the big center hole. Then 1 chain and 3 treble crochets, followed by another chain, 3 treble crochets, until you have 4 sets or clusters of 3 treble crochet stitches, each with a chain between, and all into the center hole, so it looks like this. Now just put your hook through the 3rd chain up on the first stitch you created with your 3 chains, and yarn over your hook, pull through both your loops to join the row, forms a full circuit of the square, and as you can see it's already formed a good square shape. Step 3, it's your second row. This row begins with 4 chains, 4 chains. Why? Because 3 of the chains forms your cluster But as your first cluster of 3 stitches begins after the row of 3 stitches in the row below, you need an extra chain to bridge the gap. Next, make 3 treble crochet into the chain hole on row 1, then make 1 chain, then another 3 treble crochet into the corner hole. This is your corner of the square, and see how it makes itself into a corner and holds its own shape for you? Well, then you form a chain, and into the next corner chain hole on row 1 you repeat the 3 trebles, 1 chain, 3 trebles corner once more. Make another chain to bridge the row of 3 stitches on row 1 and repeat the 3 trebles, 1 chain, 3 trebles into the final corner hole as normal. However, when you've done your 3 trebles a chain, and you would normally do another 3 trebles to finish this manoeuvre, to form this corner, this time you only need to do 2 trebles at the last bit, because you remember the 4 chains that you did at the beginning of the row? Well, they now form the last treble of that corner to complete row 2. All that's left for you to do now is to put your hook through the 3rd chain up in that 4 chain you made and to join it together by wrapping the yarn over the hook and pulling through both of the loops of the hook on the hook. You should now have a granny square that looks something like this. If it doesn't, just look back and count the stitches and just check that the tension is consistent all through the row. You may have to repeat the row if you've made a big mistake, but it's all practice and it takes a few minutes is all. So let's move on to step 4, it's your next row. You make 3 chains, then you do 2 trebles into the hole in front of you. You will see for this row that we only need 3 chains up, whereas we needed 4 on the row before. Just to remind you, in case you're a bit confused here, but this time the row is starting with a hole on the row before, not a cluster of stitches, so we don't need that extra chain to stretch over the top of them stitches. So, making 1 chain, then 3 trebles, 1 chain, 3 trebles into the corner hole on the row below. Then do a chain, 3 trebles into the hole in front of you, followed by a chain to take you to the next corner. At the corner, repeat just like the row before, the 3 treble, 1 chain, 3 trebles into that corner hole. That's that corner done. And now do a chain followed by 3 trebles into the hole halfway along the row, followed by a chain to get you to the next corner. Repeat until all 4 corners are done and each side has a cluster of 3 trebles halfway along. Right, if that's all correct, then all you've got left to do for this row is to put your hook through the first stitch in the cluster of 3 in front of you, yarn over your hook, pull through both, and that's your row joined and finished. Step 5, and we're really making progress now with this, so let's make this next row. We'll make 4 chains to start this row this time, as we need that extra chain to stretch over the top of the stitches on the row below, just like before. Make 3 trebles into the hole in front of you, then a chain, and do your normal 3 treble, 1 chain, 3 trebles into the corner. Then a chain and 3 trebles into the hole in front of you. Then a chain and again 3 trebles into the hole in front of you, followed by a chain and into your normal corner 3-1-3 routine. Repeat this process for each of the 4 sides until you reach the 4 chain up which you made to start the row. Because that chain forms one of these 3 stitches for this cluster, you only work 2 trebles at this point and then put your hook through the 3rd chain up, wrap your yarn over, pull through both, and that's it, your row is complete. By now you might be beginning to see a pattern emerging of corners consisting of 3-1-3 and clusters of 3 trebles in every hole along the row until the next corner of 3-1-3. if you see them corners with little bricks along the straight wall until the next corner, you'll realise that every row it gets bigger, there needs to be one more cluster brick, as it were, along the straight wall. So your first row had no bricks along the side wall, the next one had one, and the next two, and that's a pattern that will persist even if you did 1,000 rows or more. So if you try to remember this, and also to do the extra train where it goes over the top of the stitches and not when it goes straight into a hole on the row before, you'll not go far wrong. So at this point I thought we'll have a look at the common mistakes and how to sort of prevent or overcome them. To be honest, there's just one biggie: tension. For most of us, because we are passionate about achieving this project, and what happens is that we are terrified of dropping that stitch off and losing it all. So we work to such a taut tension that you can't even get the hook in, never mind see the pattern or where the hook should actually properly go. We end up with something that does not in any real way resemble anything remotely crocheted. The next one you try, I promise, will be looser as you gain your confidence that if you drop this one stitch off the hook, it won't unravel in front of your very eyes. And by the third or fourth attempt, I hope but guarantee that you will end up with something looking maybe a bit wonky, but definitely a granny square. You may get frustrated, but your time spent learning this skill for life will only have been literally minutes, an hour maybe. I suggest you keep the knotted up bits to remind yourself just how far you've come. So, little tips and tricks. Well, remember this, that unlike knitting, for example, you have only one stitch. Just one stitch. And if you drop it off the end of your hook, you just put it back on. There's no drama, no carry on, no picking up stitches. You just pick it up, start again. And my final tip at this stage is take your crocheting with you, because a little ball of yarn and a hook is so small it'll fit in a pocket, and you'll never be sat bored again. You'll maximise your time and you'll end up with something to be proud of. So, as we've been talking, here's the one we've made. So looking at that, that's from this one little 21-gram ball of wool. So as you can see, we've got a pretty decent sized granny square out of that one small ball of yarn off of a magazine that weighed 21 grams. Now, not to complicate things in your mind, but there is a thing called yardage. Some yarns are made in such a manner that they'll go further than others, but roughly speaking, they're quite much of a muchness. So thanks for watching, and if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them down below. And do subscribe if you want to, because I'd really hate for you to miss my follow-on videos. I'm following this Ultra Beginner's Guide in the next one with examples and uses of the granny squares we've been making. So please do feel free to send any pictures of your granny squares to me, and maybe they'll feature in the next video. See you next time, and happy crocheting!